So you got more of that email?
I think I do.
I think we have more
don't know
callers
what it
on the
is.
line, but no names yet.
Yeah,
So we're gonna.
We do have a.
Or we could go straight to Brett.
Let's do it.
All right.
It's on topic still.
All right, Brett.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi. First, I just wanted to thank you guys. This is the first time I've ever seen an intelligent conversation taking place on public access. So,
Wow.
Is it the first time you've watched our show?
Or the public access.
I hope.
I happened to catch it today. I've never seen it before, but
oh, good.
Interesting.
If you were going to say you've watched our show
life.
and this is the first time you've seen an intelligent conversation here, I'd feel bad.
I would just say it's probably the first time you've seen me co-host.
That must be it.
Yeah, if you watch public access at about 2 in the morning, it's not a real brain burner or anything. Anyway, I was just listening to that other gentleman talk about indoctrination, and it's always occurred to me as an atheist, one of the most interesting things, if you look at in the Middle East, how they indoctrinate their children into the Muslim faith or even the Hindu faith, whatever. And here in Christianity, the thing that I've always thought was interesting about atheism is atheists don't use their beliefs to justify anything. No, I've never heard of an atheist using their beliefs to justify a murder or to justify, thieving from anybody or anything like that.
Correct.
And I think it's interesting that, especially in my lifetime, I've watched us get more and more demonized to the point where we're kind of a fringe element.
Yeah.
Even though I think there's a large percentage of people out there that are what I would call passive atheists.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. This, I think a week or two ago, I saw another headline about some woman killing all her kids. And when I see those headlines, I immediately think, okay, within the first 2 sentences, it's going to say what her religion was, and I'm always right.
Yeah, exactly. I just think it's very interesting. I mean, I know it's only in the most extreme sect of the Muslim world, but we're familiar with, the people over there that teach their children that it's okay to kill a Jew or it's okay to kill a Christian, under certain circumstances. And I always thought that was interesting because you never hear that from an atheist, and we never use what we believe about the world to justify actions, and especially not to justify horrendous actions like that. It's always surprised me that atheists are viewed, at least from what I can gather by other people, we're viewed as we're one of the most untrusted demographics in the United States. I know that, and also just generally demonized, and I've never understood that.
Oh, I understand it. It's
in the context, I understand it, but from a logical, from reading and understanding, coming to my own terms with atheism, I don't understand. I guess it's because other people haven't taken the time to look at what the kind of things that I believe, even though I've taken a lot of time to look at the things that they believe.
Right. Well, I mean, it kind of goes back to what I think Tracie was saying earlier about how if somebody is giving you the answers, then you don't have to go and find out about them for yourselves. When you're an atheist, nobody gives you the answers because there's really not a book that you can point to that you can say, yes, this is absolutely 100% reliable. So if you want to find out what the opposition believes, you have to go to outside sources and often find out from the horse's mouth what they're thinking. Whereas if you're a Christian, you can just say, see, look right there. It says the fool says in his heart there is no God.
Yeah.
And that's the end of it. And if the religion has a vested interest in converting as many people as possible to it, then you don't think they're going to give other people like atheists or competing religions a fair shake when they're sermonizing about them.
Yeah.
And the other thing I thought was interesting too is I believe your last caller was talking about, I guess, kind of reverse indoctrination, where how is indoctrinating a kid with something else besides religion really any better? But in my case, I have a 14-year-old brother. He knows I'm an atheist. I've told him from the start, I tell him about what I believe, and I tell him how I got to that point. and show them the resources that I've used to get to that point. But I've told them the entire time, you can believe what you want to believe. If you tell me you're a Muslim tomorrow, you're still my brother. It's no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a much healthier point of view to have than, say, if I came from a Baptist family, my brother decides he wants to be an atheist, and, you know, we have to cut him off from the family. I mean, I've heard of situations like that happening
Right.
with people I know and things like that. And to me, it just seems like a much more inclusive lifestyle. And I'm much happier this way. I know that much. So I guess that's kind of why I was saying, like, I don't understand why we've been demonized so much, because for me, it's a very pleasant life, and I feel content in knowing what I know and knowing also that there's a lot that I don't know. And they always say that, you know, well, if there's no God, you know, what's the point? We're here for no reason. Life's not worth living. But there's tons and tons of knowledge out there that is still waiting for us. And that's what makes life worth living for me, is the pursuit of that knowledge.
Well said.
Yeah, no, I
Anything?
agree. I was just going to point out that atheism and theism, neither one really prescribes that anyone do anything. So in other words, like, you know, just simply believing that a God exists doesn't really dictate that I go out and do anything or utilize, and very few people will use even theism, pure theism, as a justification for action. Generally, it's when it involves religion, when it goes from simply, I think there's a God, to I think God wants me to do certain things.
Well, it's not really true that people don't try to invoke generic theism. You see a lot of church and state non-separation advocates saying things like, you know, oh, well, you know, we're based, you know, we can't be godless, we're Judeo-Christian, and trying to get around invoking their particular religion.
Right, but what I'm saying is...
Or also Mitt Romney making that speech where he said, religion requires freedom, just like freedom requires religion. He didn't name any particular religion, and I thought it was interesting that he wouldn't specify, given the obsession that some people who might vote for him have with Islamo-fascists.
Right. I mean, I'm not saying that a person who is in a religion cannot see an umbrella of belief that is inclusive of other religions.
Yeah.
But what I am saying is that simply saying I believe in God does not dictate an action.
Right. I see what you're saying with that, too. And I think the problem, like, I don't have any problem whatsoever with theism in general and people believing in God. I think the problem with theism is that it's 99 times out of 100 accompanied by organized religion.
Right.
And I think that's where it goes wrong.
Right. It's when you layer a belief system on top of your theism is where you run into problems. And it's the same, I mean, and that's the thing, is with atheism, how do you lay a belief system on top of that in a cohesive way? I think that humanism is sort of a mild attempt at something like that, except that humanism also includes religious theists. So, but you do have, in that's like the one thing I can think of where you have like a group of atheists who are kind of coming together and layering a belief system onto atheism to say that I'm going to identify consciously with humanism as well as atheism, or because I'm an atheist.
Well, but I think there's a difference here in that if you just say you're an atheist, you don't have to say you're a humanist, or indeed pick anything else to go along with your atheist. But there's no such thing as a generic God. I mean, if you say there is a God, then automatically that implies that you believe that there is a God, and he is a specific God with specific properties.
Well,
Except that
you may not know what that is,
interpretation
but
of God you're talking about, you've received it from somewhere.
You
didn't come up with that from your own research or your own evidence.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that a person can believe, can say I believe in God, and yet feel that nothing is required to say I simply believe there's a God.
Right, although that is a specific belief about God. This is a God who doesn't care.
But it may not dictate your actions, is what I'm saying. It's not, theism itself does not require any action.
No, it doesn't.
Religion is what requires action.
Yeah, it's kind of a fine distinction there.
But I think it's when he's talking about atheism not being used as a justification, what I'm trying to point out is that theism is also not used as a justification.
Right.
Religion
Right.
is
I
used
see
as
your
a
point, yeah.
justification. That when you apply a belief system to it that says, I then have to act, well, that's something that you're putting on top of your theism. That's not pure theism anymore.
But what I'm saying is nobody identifies as a pure theist. Nobody says I'm a
I wouldn't
theist.
say
They
that.
say I'm a Christian.
But I've talked to people who have said, like, I believe in God, but I don't go to church, and I don't really know anything. I don't believe the Bible or whatever, but I just think
Right,
there's something.
but that person has chosen a particular version of God. I mean, he's chosen at least a God who has not decreed that he's going to be tortured forever for not going to church.
Well, I'm not saying, though, that the person might not have specific ideas about their God. I'm simply saying
Right,
that
but,
it's possible.
but if they did believe in hell and they did believe that God would torture people who don't believe in him, then they sure as hell wouldn't be a non-church going Christian.
Right,
I mean,
but
they
now
must
but now
believe
they're
that
applying
God is not that.
Right, but now they're
right?
applying a religion or a belief system on top of their theism.
Yeah.
Because they're putting other things in. Now I believe in hell.
Right,
now
but
I
I'm
believe in the
saying
Bible.
it's unavoidable for theism.
I don't believe that it's unavoidable.
Okay.
I think there are some
See,
people
this
that are
is the
not
great
religious.
thing
I was
about an
referring
atheist
to
show. We
as
don't stand
just
here and
kind of
agree with
passive
each other.
atheists. I mean, that's kind of the people I was referring to, where if you ask them if they're a Christian, they'll say yes. Or if you ask them if they believe in a God, they'll say yes. But, I mean, if you sat down at a table with them and had a conversation with them, you'll find out they've never read the Bible. They've been to church 2 or 3 times with their parents or something along those lines. And like you were saying, they kind of believe out of an inherent fear of not believing. But if you really sat them down and talked to them, there's nothing there behind their beliefs.
Right, and if they get sick, they don't pray, they go to the hospital.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, well, I got to run. Thank you guys very much
Thanks,
for
All
taking
right,
my call.
thanks for calling, Brett.
All right,
Talk to you
anytime.
later.
Hey, looks like we got another one.